Last week at the Sefako Makgatho Presidential Guest, President Jacob Zuma led a South African delegation of cabinet ministers and business leaders in the lead up to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Well, the annual gathering starts tomorrow and it runs for 3 days. The task of convincing investors that South Africa is open for business will lie squarely with Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan, who joins us now from our Pretoria studios. Minister, thank you very, very much for joining us here on the program.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
Minister, remind us why Davos is so important. Why is it important to have an agenda there and to have a presence?
Well, Davos marks the beginning of each calendar year when business leaders, academics, opinion makers, investors, people that we borrow money from, and people who would invest in countries like South Africa and elsewhere in the world, gather to discuss the state of the world economy, the state of society, and share ideas either on contemporary issues or on the future. So this year it's about the fourth industrial revolution, which has relevance both for us but particularly for developed countries, and where many emerging markets are talking about how do we reindustrialize, how do we create jobs in sectors in which we have comparative advantages, and how do we become competitive in those sectors as well.
Yeah. And
in the broader context, of course, there'll be a discussion on the global crisis, because we haven't quite recovered from the 2008, 2009 recession. Many countries have difficulties of one sort or another, whether it's the developed world like Europe or emerging markets, amongst which South Africa is classified, or commodity producers, all of whom, if you like, under the whip at the moment.
Well, I imagine that there's almost like a fight for space from emerging markets, because it's a difficult time for emerging markets. We see many of the countries going through a torrid time, and South Africa no exception whatsoever. Getting investors at a time like this is crucial but difficult, no doubt.
No, it is. But I think what is important is to also help investors and business leaders to think in the medium to long term and not just in the short term. One of the messages that we need to take to Davos is that as a young democracy, we are a very resilient nation, both economically, politically and socially. Yes, we have formidable challenges that we have to deal with on the economic front and in terms of building a new nation and a new sense of nationhood. But we've made huge progress in the last 20 years. Every country will have dips every now and again, and resilience enables us to sort of pull through. But secondly, if you're looking at the longer term and looking at just the last 7 or 8 years, it's emerging markets that help to sustain world growth at a time when the United States, Europe, and other developed countries found themselves in trouble post-2009. So there's this swinging phenomenon of sentiment, pro-developed world, pro-emerging markets, and then it turns against some of that as well. And what we want is greater consistency and a longer-term view. And what we agreed at the pre-Davos meeting is that we will act as Team South Africa, both the business sector and government, and ensure we put our best foot forward to the world.
Yeah. Well, certainly I imagine that last year's session also was a very challenging session for South Africa. I mean, there were huge concerns regarding energy issues and challenges which haven't been resolved, but yet seem to be a little bit more steady when we compare ourselves to this time last year. However, our domestic economy really does lack a lot of confidence. So it's domestic confidence we need to prove to the rest of the world, I imagine. So it's a heavy load on your shoulder that you move into the World Economic Forum with.
Well, we share that as South Africans, not just government, but as South Africans in general. And that's why we need to work as a team. On the energy front, as Mr. Mabuza pointed out on Friday, the chair of BUSA, we can go back to Davos and say we've stabilized the situation. Now we need to go beyond stabilization and ensure that there's consistent performance, both from Eskom, but also the huge investments that are taking place in IPPs. Secondly, in terms of our internal confidence, well, that's up to us. If we want to shoot ourselves in the foot, then we'll face the consequences of that. And our appeal as government is that we have a lot going for us as a country. We are in the top 5, 6, or 10 of the World Competitiveness Index, which the World Economic Forum publishes, in respect of the key business infrastructure that global businesses require to operate in. And we are the most industrialized on the African continent. We might not be the biggest economy. We have the best business infrastructure. And on our side, I think we need to recognize that we need to make some changes on the regulatory front and in terms of facilitating investment in order to attract more investment. But importantly, we also have a very good record in terms of fiscal management, managing our money over the last 20 years. When the President speaks at the State of the Nation and we deliver the budget on behalf of government, we will once again demonstrate that fiscal management is in good hands in this country.
Overall, the message last week that you're going to be taking to Davos, there are 3 issues that you really want to be taking and presenting to the table. We know that the theme, you mentioned it a bit earlier, overall at Davos is the 4th Industrial Revolution, global growth and commodity prices. However, one cannot ignore the oil markets, the Chinese slowdown and the global downturn. But from a local perspective, what are those issues that you're taking to the table?
Well, firstly, we need to use this opportunity to understand what's the feeling about the global economy. Later today, the World Economic Forum will publish its latest World Economic Outlook, and you'll get a sense for what they think are the growth numbers for the globe and for different parts of the globe. Secondly, I think everybody there will recognize that it's not just individual countries that are in difficulty, but as a globe, we don't have an answer to the question, where is growth going to come from? Where is demand going to come from? And how do we create a better balance between developed countries and emerging markets? So our message will clearly be, in this kind of situation, South Africa's economy is in safe hands. South Africa is going to take additional initiatives in order to attract investment and demonstrate that it is open for business. And thirdly, we look forward to a new level of cooperation and collaboration between labor, business and government, so that we can show to the world that we have a united determination to grow this economy, to be more inclusive than we've ever been in our history, and begin to take on the challenges, both economic and social, that we still confront.
We've got a massive delegation going down. I mean, I'm reading that there's nearly, I'd say nearly half the 115 delegates attending next week's World Economic Forum in Davos are from South Africa. We've got so many ministers, business leaders, leaders of Naspers, Barclays, Nedbank CEO, Patrice Motsepe. We've got the Minister of Trade and Industry going, yourself, the Minister of Energy, Tina Joemat-Pettersson, as well as other ministers. It's a massive bill for the country as well. Is it worth our while to be going in such numbers? Is something like this really as important as we're making it out to be, to go out in these large numbers?
Well, at this stage, I think it's a worthwhile investment. It gives my colleagues also an opportunity and ourselves as a team to understand what the world is saying, where the dynamics are going, and how do we tailor our plans to meet some of the anticipated global developments. At some stage, we might have to review the size of delegation, but for now, there's huge benefits, and I think South Africans should know that once we set foot in Davos, we are quite effective as Team South Africa, both from the business and other sectors that are represented, and from government as well. And we will be meeting even in Davos as a South African team to evaluate our experiences, but more importantly, see what are the proactive things we can do to position South Africa in a good space.
Minister, just before we let you go, if you come back with 2 things, what would you determine, or what would make this World Economic Forum a success for you?
A better understanding of how the global economy, and in particular dynamics in emerging markets and big countries like China, are likely to unfold over the next year or 2. So that we could take that into our planning. And secondly, a new range of interested people who want to come to South Africa and explore possibilities, both in terms of investment in South Africa, but also using South Africa as a base for business in Africa, notwithstanding the kind of difficulties we have. These low growth levels don't last forever. And that's why I say we don't need to give in to the doomsayers. We need to keep a very optimistic and hopeful outlook for the future, take on some of the challenges that we have today, overcome them with our normal resilience and creativity, and create a better future for South Africans.
Minister, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We know that it's very valuable. I know you've got lots of meetings to attend before you head off this evening to Davos. But that's our Finance Minister talking to us from our Pretoria studios. Pravin Gordhan, thank you very, very much for being our guest.